All right, we're going to get started here. So I'm Forrest Blake. I'm the founder of Highrise Networks. We are excited to announce that a couple of weeks ago, we hit 1,000 members. And it's just a milestone. It's a small one, but we feel like getting to 2,000 is going to be a much quicker process. And we're excited to see our folks from Philadelphia, our new market, and Boston, Chicago. It feels like Chicago's been around forever, but it's only really 90 days. So welcome everybody from Chicago, and real excited about the growth. And I do want to say this is only our second webinar or panel. So we're open to hearing other panel ideas. And we think these are great. We think the more education and the more leadership development we can do in Highrise, the better for our members, because it is about certainly not just getting business from each other, but learning. That's a big undertone and actually overtone of what Highrise is all about. So with that, I just want to intro this session. I have been using CRMs from all the way back to when there used to be something called ACT. Did anybody use ACT? I mean, I don't even know when that was. So we are, you think back to the old days when it was, super complex, very clunky. We really didn't understand why we had it, other than we knew that we didn't want to lose that contact. And then you fast forward to today, where, the thing that I don't like the most about a CRM is it's kind of like a utility. If they shut you down, you're out of business. And so it's frustrating that a lot of your processes, your systems, your marketing, really every communication that you have is, in a sense, tied up with your customer relationship management. And I don't know why they called it CRM, but I think it's really lead management as well. I guess I'm going to have to mute all. I have not done that in a long time. Let's see. All right, I don't know how to do that, but if I hear noises, we'll have to mute you. But so I think that when we think of customer management, I think we really have to think of it as lead management. I've grown Highrise entirely out of direct email marketing through contact relationship management software. So everybody that's here is here because you received an email that was curated out of Salesforce, is what I use. So from that perspective, I think we really have to, if you are using, thank you, customer relationship management, if you are using a CRM, great. We hope that today we're going to be able to improve on some of the thoughts that you have around it and uses. If you are not currently using a CRM, we'll talk about that too with our panel. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and post in the, I'm going to post the panel here again in the chat. So let's go ahead and my goal here is not to have speeches necessarily, but to ask hopefully relevant questions of our panelists. And Jessica, I'm going to start with you, and then fundamentally have each one of them weigh in on each topic. So I guess I'm going to throw you a softball here, Jessica, all four of you, is how do you see in today's environment a CRM benefiting a top professional like we see here? You're on mute.
Thank you. So I see it benefiting by really aligning the sales and marketing teams in these bigger companies and helping grow these companies in a way that shows them everything all in one place when it's integrated correctly. Our goal really is to just understand the challenges of our clients and try and solve them by using a CRM that's best suited for them and their current processes, organize everything they do, and even all the great features that CRMs now have integrated into them, to really just have everything all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, Gary Shields, remember those old Rolodex cards we used to use? It was still in a box, and we can go get it, and we can see it. And now we've got these complicated CRMs that are amazingly detailed. And I think you're right, Jessica. A lot of times we aren't using it to the level that the product was developed, or even scratching the surface. Sometimes I feel like that with our members of Highrise too. You know, they'll go to their group meeting, but they don't join the community forum. And I think, you know, there's so much more you can do.
Right. And it's accessible at any time, anywhere. It's customizable. People just don't understand that these are quite flexible today.
Right. Well, thank you, Jessica. Chris Smith, tell us how your clients are using CRMs to benefit their business.
Yeah, it's a great question. What we see is typically companies will come to us, usually starting out of the sales team or potentially the marketing team, saying, hey, we're having these problems. We're not getting the value that we're hoping for out of their current CRM, or they don't have a CRM and we need one. But when we talk to them, one of the messages we try to convey is to really generate ROI, because it can be a significant investment when you're making an investment in CRM. Don't leave out the rest of your operations and customer support. When you win that deal, that's just the beginning of that relationship with the customer. There's a whole lot of things that have to happen to onboard that customer, to make sure that whatever product or service that you're providing is being delivered as expected. That can all be managed within your CRM and should be managed within your CRM platform. And that's really, when you extend it beyond the sales team and beyond marketing, that's really when you can impact and move the needle with an organization. There's a lot of opportunities for automation, for eliminating the spreadsheets and other tools people are using just to get their work done, bring that all into the CRM platform and create that single source of truth throughout the organization.
I love that. I love the single source of truth, right, Pam? Right, Pete Fowler. We've been talking about that. So the, you know, Chris, but I love my Excel spreadsheet. I mean, you know,
yeah, it's security blanket, it's control. But the problem with your Excel spreadsheet is who else can see it?
Yeah.
It's a silo. It's an inhibitor to the rest of the organization because they don't have access to that information.
Yeah, easily, right? And then I think that one thing that I'm realizing too is that if you have a sales team that is doing a process that takes them 4 or 5 clicks, number one is you have to get them to do it, right? What happens if it was automated and it's 1 click and it's done? All those fields are filled out. Or when you're thinking about measuring the key KPIs, the key performance indicators, what happens if what your sales team is doing or your customer service team is doing is rolled up into a centralized report, a dashboard that not only can management see it, but also the people doing the work can see it. And at that point, you've now created efficiency, you've created accountability, and you haven't expended more time on that aspect. But Chris, I do want to ask you a question. So, you know, CRMs aren't really that expensive. So when you say, expending resources, are you talking about resources to create the functionality within the CRM to work the way that the professional wants?
Yeah, the reality of when you go pick any CRM platform, and there are exceptions to this there are CRM platforms out there that are industry specific or targeted on a vertical. Those usually are less expensive to implement because the work's already been done to build it out for that specific vertical or industry. So it's usually a much less of an upfront investment. For all the other platforms, it's not uncommon when you get it, it's vanilla. and vanilla rarely works for most businesses. We see customers that, I self-implemented, I tried to do it myself, but I'm not getting what I hoped for.
Right.
And it's because they just, as Pam was saying, or Jessica was saying, that there's so many capabilities of the platform, unless you really understand it, you're not going to know they're there. And so you're only going an inch deep when you could be going a mile deep.
Yeah.
And that getting that mile deep, it can be expensive, but you have to look at it, or we try to reframe it for people that you're making an investment in your growing your business. And so when you make that investment aligned with your strategic goals for your business, that's, come from that perspective, and spend the money on what's going to achieve those strategic goals. Not just on stuff like, it'll be cool to have that, but it's really not helping me grow my business, then it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. All right, let's go to Jim Gillon.
Yeah, we're very focused on law firms. So we have the industry specific strategy for a CRM. We have great flexibility, but we focus first and foremost on keeping the information in the respective Outlook contact folders for lawyers consistent for the same contact, as well as extending Outlook and providing a platform from which all the email invitations, the landing page responses where people can RSVP, and a whole range of other related business development support. So it's all very specific, but very extendable without programming being needed to accomplish that.
That's awesome. And you only have 40 years of experience in this.
That's all I have so far,
yeah. Amazing. And it's funny, I never really thought of a law firm as needing specific CRM capabilities, but you think about it, I guess if they have 1,000 clients over time, managing that information and what happened there and how much revenue came in, and does it also connect to the billing system?
It can pull information from billing systems, although billing systems should be able to provide that type of analysis without having to go to the CRM. Our typical clients will be law firms starting at around 15 or 20 attorneys.
Okay.
So we're not dealing with 1,000 customers. We're dealing with 10, 20, 30, 50, 80, 100,000, numbers like that.
And we've surveyed our members over the years, and we've asked them, where do you get most of your business? And you would think it would be through networking, and I would say that's a very small portion. It might be 10 or 20%. Most companies drive their business through their existing clients and referrals from those existing clients. And if we can become more visible, I guess I'm preaching to the choir. I just heard this a couple of days ago. If we become more interactive with them, the way that they want to be communicated with at the right time with the right presentation, we're going to be able to generate more business from them, but also from the people that look like them and act like them and spend like them. So I would think that's a big advantage, right, Jim?
Yes, and we support the ability for law firms to communicate with their clients, identify what types of alerts, notifications, or subscriptions they're interested in, go to the landing page, update their own contact information, things of that nature.
Awesome. Well, Tom, I didn't forget about you. We'll rotate this around. Tom, tell us what your thoughts are around why do we need this complicated CRM system?
Oh, you changed it. It's complicated now. Well, actually, it's I'm in the thought process that every company needs a CRM, even a one-man operation, one-person operation. We have a client that's $60 billion in revenue, a large distributor, global distributor. I'm going to echo a little bit what Chris said and kind of contradict you a little bit, Forrest, where you said you look at it as a lead system. I look at CRMs as basically a relationship system. So Chris mentioned customer support. I have many customers that only use customer support. They don't have any sales portions or marketing portions at all, but they're dealing with the customers. A customer calls or comes a report, they needs a support or product return. Also, implementation. We have a customer now we're working with that installs gutter guards, and they're using the Microsoft CRM to go ahead and schedule their technicians to go ahead and schedule the gutters or come back and fix the holes in the gutters and repair and stuff like that. It's all about customer contact. So, like a one-person photographer can have a CRM to handle his leads and potential projects. To I said, we have a customer that we've implemented. Let's just say they paid us millions over the last 5 years to help implement their system worldwide. 20,000 SKUs, 12,000 users, all tied their CRM as an order entry system, not as a lead system, into their SAP backend, so they can go ahead and do their accounting and as well through the CRM. So it's a big range of what can be used for, is my thought.
Yeah. Oh, great. And you've just exposed my limitation. My
But that's
background is commercial real estate. And
That's
what
not
I
unusual
do,
though. A lot of people think of CRM as Act Plus or whatever the case may be, and it's so much more. And that's what Jessica kind of said. There are a lot more things that can use a CRM for. And I'll even though I don't know Jim, law firms have come to me, and I'll know Jim's out there because they have real needs for um, making sure data happens and workflow happens. If someone files a lawsuit, you can use a CRM to go ahead and manage that whole process of making sure the filings or all those kind of things. Jim, I don't know your CRM does that, but it's a possibility to go ahead and use all those for that as well. So sorry, but yeah.
oh,
Yeah, we've
good.
done that for some firms. It's
Yep.
not the major focus, but certainly it can be done.
hmm
Also, I'm going to throw it up to David here for a second too. He and Jessica are both co co-moderating this. So David, you wanna add a couple of final thoughts on why, and then we'll get to our next question.
Yeah, I would just say, a goal with a CRM is to increase efficiencies and increase ROI. And like Chris said, these can be very daunting, and they come with so many features. And like Tom said, that people don't even know exist. For one, a lot of things people are leaning on us for, things like lead scoring, and even managing a deals board and moving things along. And the smart way to go with all of this is to find some easy wins, pick a system that's fairly flexible, that's going to allow you to do what you need to do, get that ROI, and then start moving into the more detailed parts of the system. I think all great advice here is to start somewhere that's manageable for your team, start to show them wins, and then you'll get more buy-in from everybody.
Awesome. Well, most of our members and most of the people on this webinar today are directly related to income generation. Most of the folks that join Highrise they're here because, hey, I'd love another piece of business. So I want to throw this out to you guys and say, how can we leverage a CRM to make more money, to generate more revenue? And some of this will be overlapping, but I'm going to start. I'm going to start with you, Tom, and tell us what your thoughts are around that.
Well, it's a lot of it. Make more money applies different for every business, but ultimately, a CRM is almost designed to take a customer experience and elevate the customer experience, create stickiness. So, for example, if we've all been to it where we call somebody or text them or email them, and they know who we are and they know our background, that we immediately want to do business with that company, especially if it's correct. You've all been in situations where please enter your customer number 8 times when you talk to someone and get transferred, and you'd rather not do that. So there's number one is that for making money. No, it's really about stickiness in the sales process, understanding that. Now, with that, it can be a lot more efficient because, as I mentioned before, there's workflow automation available to you that if you have someone that requested a quote, for example, or product pricing, an automation can automatically say, either tell the customer, hey, we haven't heard from you in 3 days or 5 days, whatever it is. Are you still interested? Kind of like the Amazon bucket. Hey, you left something in your shopping cart. Or you can have the internal salespeople, their callback list. Hey, these folks potentially have revenue of 20,000 or 10,000. We haven't heard from them, and they're in stage 5 of the sales process. So it helps organize the sales process and make sure you're happy and don't lose anything. I have a client that is a magazine publisher, and they didn't use a CRM. And as they went back to the notes 6 months later, after the first magazine was published, they had so many people, hey, I'm not interested now. Call me January 1st when I have my new budget, my 2021 budget, and all those. And they're all missed because they weren't able. So that's one way to be able to use a CRM to make sure manage some of the potential revenue and make sure you're following up on it.
Yeah, I love the stickiness because that, if you have birthdays and spouses' names and sporting, it's back to the Harvey McCabe. I forget that if it's 50 or 150, but the more you know about that customer, and the more
66.
what's that?
The McKay 66.
There it is. Thank you, Pete. He's probably got that book sitting right next to him. But anyway, yeah, no, it's important to have that data, and I think that's, and then I think, like you're saying, Tom, if we communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with, that's also important. We're finding now people want to be text messaged. Well, you're not going to know that unless there's a button clicked and says, okay, they like text message. So I'm gonna move it up to Chris here. So Chris, how do we make more money using our CRM?
I love this question. Because really that's what we're all about, and a big part of why we implement CRM. One of the recommendations that we make to companies is when you're working with a customer, you're onboarding that customer, develop a profile around that customer that allows you to identify what additional cross-sell opportunities may exist with that customer.
Right.
Are they a candidate for, we sold them X, but are they a candidate for Y and Z? And if they are, then use the marketing components of that of your CRM to start giving them additional content around Y and Z, or that you're going to engage your sales team, whoever sells Y and Z somehow to begin engaging with that customer. Do it in a, start with that end goal in mind, and then set up your CRM to support that. So, it's capturing that data profile to support that engagement, those future wins that you want to have. And it's also making sure nothing falls through the cracks. I just had a call this morning with a company where they're like, we know we're getting leads from our website and they're not flowing through to the sales team. I hear that all the time. That should never happen. If the customer is making the effort to engage with you, you better make sure you're capturing that and you're responding in a timely fashion. That's that's bread and butter CRM, that kind of thing right there.
Love that. And it could be as, I forget if it was Jim or if it was Tom, it could be an automated response with a custom field. So it's not like, oh yeah, right, we'll get back. It's not like a bot, because it's actually pulling information from the CRM, putting it in the body of that email, personalizing it with a canned response.
Yeah, that's like the first thing is that CRM's generating that response. Someone's going to be, from our team's going to be with you shortly. That lead is getting forward to the appropriate person, but then it's tracked, and if whoever owns that lead hasn't responded within 24 hours, it's automatically escalating to someone else, so that, it's being followed up, that insight is being provided.
Yeah.
I see this all the time to clients. Nothing falls through the cracks. It should never happen.
Yeah, no, you're making me very anxious, because I know probably while I was on the phone, we probably have had a few leads fall through the cracks. So that's the fear, right? Of any company that is generating revenue and relies on sales, and we have to be on top of that. So Jim, you want to
here's the scary thought, Forrest. I was talking with someone that they thought their lead system was hooked up to their CRM, and they found out 6 months later that was not the case. That all these forms on their site were going into the ether world. And when they finally realized that and fixed that, all of a sudden their lead funnel, they started getting all these leads. Then the CEO of the company realized, oh my God, what we could have had for those 6 months.
Exactly. Jim, you want to weigh in, and we'll grab Jessica and David?
Well, sure. It's in a law firm environment, it's really about relationship management more than a lot of direct selling, although obviously lawyers sell. It's not a term that's used a lot. But in terms of follow-up with existing contacts, we have mechanisms by which they can identify a period and a frequency for somebody, they'd like to have some follow-up, and then it'll keep track of that until they indicate that they've actually done that. It'll give them a forecast of who to follow up with and what they have and haven't done so far. We also do things like, and this is new for our product, but we're tracking the incoming and outgoing emails so they can measure automatically strength of relationship among attorneys and contacts and clients. And when business opportunities arrive, by the information that's stored in respect to practice areas and such, they can see if, who they know at a particular organization, who in the firm knows them, how well they know them, and use that to facilitate their selling.
Yeah, leveraging common connections. The other thing you made me think of, Jim, is, this is a dynamic environment. And as you know, a lot of lawyers are moving firms right now. So you have a lawyer who gives notice, and, you still have all of that data as to who they've been talking to and how that relationship's going. I mean, I would think that's invaluable for those sort of situations.
Depending on the type of practice, yes.
Got it. Great. Jessica, David, you just want to add in?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of engagement, we have to engage across the whole customer life cycle. So attract, connect, close, delight. It can and make very smart, automatic email workflows and sequences that go as far as 25 emails deep. And you can set it up and forget about it and be able to measure it as well. You can measure what they clicked, what they did next, when they visited your site, how often they opened your proposal. We can set custom alerts so that you don't forget things. So really all of that together will help.
And just to piggyback off that, a lot of these CRMs give you the ability to tag people with certain personas. So based on whether they're 1, 2, 3 of 3 personas or 2 of 3 personas, they can get automatic contextual email notices that are smart, that are timely, that are right for them at the right time.
So you're saying a corporate attorney in Chicago. So we know
corporate attorney, non-corporate attorney, then you could have partners, internal partners that you market to completely different than, attorneys.
Right.
You could have affiliates and all of these different groups that bring you business. So it's not just the single client, but a lot of us have to rely on partnerships like we're developing here in Highrise.
Yeah. Thanks, David. And one thing that is also important is how many people have had either yourself or somebody in your company write a follow-up email that has typos in it. Anybody ever that? Has it ever happened to anybody? Oh, nobody here, of course. Everybody's perfect. I can tell you guys are all very proud. I know you're not telling me the truth. So we had an issue with that. Is that salespeople aren't necessarily, they're good communicators, maybe verbally, but they may not be the most artistic and most patient to reread their emails. So a big part of our follow-up was having templated emails. I know it sounds really simple, but here's a menu of things you can send to somebody. It's pre-written. There's no typos. It's going to bring over some information from that contact, so it's personalized. And you know what? Now they can do 40 follow-ups in 30 minutes, whereas in the past, they were retyping a similar message poorly multiple times. So that's back to, creating efficiencies that are super important and making your sales team look like stars rather than like they just graduated high school. So that's one thing that we do that's been really important for us. So what I'd like to do is I want to leave some time for questions. I know that this is an hour series. We have 13 more minutes. So I want to leave the last 15 minutes for questions. So what I'd like everybody to do is start thinking about questions and posting those in the chat for everyone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our panel on the spot here, and I'm going to ask for what are the, and this is obviously a general a general question, I mean, because everybody's at a different level. So what are the 1, 2, 3 things that we need to think about right now related to CRMs, and something that we can maybe execute on, after this call? And I know that's a tough one, but who of our panel wants to be courageous and jump on in and give us those 1, 2, 3? Chris, go ahead. You're on mute.
The first question I would ask is, are you getting value out of your CRM? And whatever that CRM may be, it may be a Rolodex on your desktop. Are you getting value out of that? Is it really helping you grow your business? And if that question, if it's a negative, then do something about it. Start spending the time researching. But the common mistake I think I see is that people tend to focus on the technology first. What you really need to start doing is looking at your business first and really figuring out what are, and I think it's a collaborative thing. If you have employees or partners, that you can get everybody in a room and start opening up that discussion of what's really going to help our business. Let's not forget about technology, but what are the things that don't work today that we need to make better? And what are those things that if we had them could make things just really fuel our growth or support our strategic goals? Approach it from that perspective. Once you get that nailed down, that shopping list of here's what we need, then start shopping for the platform that is right sized for you now, but also years down the road. That's another common thing that I see, that companies will, I bought this one because it's very affordable for me now, but my business has grown so much, it's holding us back. Make sure that the platform can grow at the same pace you expect your business to grow at, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. A lot of times people are just thinking about the now, and they put themselves in a corner when they're making that selection.
Yeah.
And then the other part is find a good partner to help you with that implementation. Self-implementing CRM, while it's possible, I don't recommend it. And the reason why is these platforms, there's just a lot of complexity to them. And if you're really going to get that return, because that's really what it's all about. I'm doing this because I want to get a return on this investment. It's like, representing yourself in a lawsuit. It's just not a good idea. It's the same way with self-implementing CRM.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. And I was listening to a book on the way driving the other day about habits. And this isn't really a comment about habits, but what they said is you can't think that you're going to solve everything in an hour or a month or even a year. But if you start the process, his concept was a 0.5% a day better. So if you're consistently creating the systems, and I think that was really where he was coming from, forget about the goal. The goal will happen if you have the systems in place. Now, those systems don't come overnight. You're going to need to make mistakes and refine and refine and refine. But get started, I think, was really what this was all about. If you go to the gym a half hour a day, rather than going 2 hours once a month, you're going to be much better shape.
And that's a great analogy for doing CRM, that it's focusing on your processes. Let's fix this part first, get it working for us, and then what's next?
Yeah.
It's an evolution, it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah, Jessica?
Yeah, to go off of the, 3 things that we should do first, I would always say personas, email sequences, and organize your database. Understand who you're marketing to, what they need to see, and make sure your database is clean from the start. A common mistake is people just hanging on to their lists forever, marketing to useless contacts, and they don't get a clear picture of what is working and what isn't. So that's really something that I would say would be the top 3 things to get started and be successful with your CRM.
Yeah, we all have that contact from 10 years ago that said no 5 times, and we still send them stuff. You know, and I know that HubSpot has at least I think it was HubSpot that it has a kind of a feature that if somebody doesn't open your email after so many times, they get taken off your marketing list. They're not interested in your stuff. But we all hang on to that data. You know, I still do it too. You know, I know that I sent them emails 3 months ago and they didn't respond to 6. Well, maybe I can send them one more time. It makes you feel like you're active and busy, but you're just beating a dead horse. You know, they're not going to respond very, very rarely. And your open rates are 3 or 4%. And you start getting people that are gonna put you in as spam. I mean, that's exactly what you don't do. Love that, Jessica. Great idea. David, you want to pile on?
I'll just say, yeah, I mean, we're a platinum partner of HubSpot, and that's lesson number 1 for us. You know, it's from them directly. You know, they tell us that they will kick us off if our databases aren't clean, and that's how people run into a whole bunch of spam and email issues, and then guys like us have to get even more of the weeds to figure out a new domain solution and how you're going to send email from there instead of your important business domain.
Yeah, it's like having a retail store that just burnt down.
Mm-hmm.
There's no place to sell your product anymore if you jeopardize the integrity of your domain. And yeah, super important. So as much as we love this marketing and you got to get out there and talk to people, and we've got the customer management, you've got to make sure your backend is super clean. Your DNS, which some people may not know what that is, but it's got to be set up to be very, very clean, and you have to monitor it and make sure that the flow of emails that are going out are being received. I made a mistake one time of not having an opt-out. You know, I figured I just didn't think about it, right? And all of a sudden, Google said, no, they're definitely spammers because people were replying saying, or just putting you in spam. So there's a lot of things to think about. You've got to treat your list like it's your most valuable asset and treat it with respect. Tom, you wanna go next? Top 3 things you would say we should do right away to execute?
Number 1 would be to make sure you think things through, plan what you're trying to accomplish. I'm surprised how much folks just say, give me a demo, show them what you can get, which doesn't really get you anywhere. It's almost like going to a car dealer and saying, let me test drive every vehicle you have. Well, do you want a pickup truck? Do you want a sports car, whatever? Get an idea of what you're trying to accomplish. And they get buy-in from other people. If you're the CEO of the company, check your sales team, check your support team. Make sure that's one of our requirements. We try to make sure all anybody that's going to be involved in it, board of directors, whatever, at least be aware of it, understand it. As my top 2. And number 3, just is plan to learn, plan to use advice. So many people try to implement themselves. They'll try to save a couple grand, $10,000, and winds up a lot of people when they stop using it. I had a conversation this morning. You know, boy, we don't want Salesforce. We want to go to CRM or Microsoft. Or we don't like Microsoft. We want to go to CRM. I said, well, what's the issue? What's your implementation plan? Well, we don't have one. Well, do an implementation plan before you make any changes, and understand that way you'll wind up getting the best what you want to get out of it. That's kind of my 2.5, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah, no. And Tom, I think the reason is because it's hard. It's hard to sit down and create a workflow. It's hard to write a sequence of emails. This is very creative, it isn't something that's intuitive. It takes a lot of effort. You're on mute.
It's hard to write it, but it's not hard to think it through what your business is. So if you know, for example, you have a contract process, example of I mentioned as a gutter screening company. Well, they get the lead. The next process is they will send a salesperson out to measure and leave a quote. And then once the quote's there, they'll send the quote via email or Adobe or Sign or something like that and sign it. And then they'll schedule someone to install it. Well, thinking that through, what's the email going to say? What's the quote going to say? Do we go ahead and set that up? That's not difficult to think through. You're doing it manually now, but just make sure you put that down so everybody understands it. When everybody understands it, either the consultants or your own internal team, then they start thinking about what about this, what about that, and then you become a more collaborative approach. So that's what I said about having people involved. It makes a better solution, and everybody wants it and says, let's do this. And then you schedule out what you need to do, I guess. That's kind of my thought process. So
Yeah.
I guess it's hard writing the details, but it's not hard understanding what those are.
But, and we've seen some questions in the chat, and we'll probably address those, is, you're not getting an adoption from your team unless they feel like there's the why, they have the answer to the why do I have to do this. And so that's super great. Jim.
Most important aspect of a CRM for a law firm is the adoption by the attorneys that are going to use it. And to accomplish that, we have to make that as simple as possible. So we drive everything for them through Outlook, and it's a fairly simple extension. In our product, we have unlimited user-defined data fields for all of the major tables, and we discourage the use of them because we want to keep it very simple.
Mm-hmm.
However, if in the process of evaluating what the firm has been doing or wants to accomplish, there is some need for incremental data to be tracked, we can facilitate that. So it's really all about adoption and simplicity. We're less involved in the marketing automation stages, email marketing and things of that nature.
I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started several companies that I thought were going to be fantastic. One was a golf network where you put people together from across the country. Sounds like Highrise, doesn't it? To play country clubs that they're a member of a club. And I had 1,000 people that had joined for $99, and there was very little adoption. they paid the money and they never used it. I mean, you think about it, you can go play a country club, any country club across the country. So I think you're right, Jim. It's super, adoption is so important. And that's why we've kept our website fairly simple here at Highrise as well. There's a lot more features we can have. We realize that let's keep it simple. Let's make sure people are using it and move forward. But there's a question, I think you've answered this earlier. Jim, can a firm ever be too small to use our CRM?
Well, certainly a CRM, as has been discussed already, is helpful to any size organization. But in terms of what we deliver, we expect a SQL Server database in the background, an Exchange server, because we're dealing with Outlook through the Exchange server. And typically our clients will have hired a marketing director. So that won't normally happen in a law firm until you get up into the 10 or 15 attorney range.
Right.
Some not until they get to 30. But we can work with a single lawyer. It's just not going to be economical for the implementation.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think the Fred's question and Steve's question are fairly similar here in the chat. So we're kind of talking about integration, right? So how many management and accounting systems, have a CRM capability? And then Steve's question is integration with other systems like a call center platform. So who in our panel wants to start with that one? Go ahead, David, and then Chris.
Sure. For us, everyone has to know the term API. It's how we integrate software with other software. We recommend that. That's the big value of these CRMs, is that you can integrate it with other software to create customer reports that you've never been able to have before, and data points that you've never been able to connect before. The way to do that is to use software that has created APIs that allow you to communicate from one system to another. QuickBooks has an API. HubSpot, Salesforce, Marketo, three of the major CRMs we work with, they all have APIs. And even then, if those don't have all of the tools that you're working for together, there's other applications that can pull even more data points in, such as DataBox, to give you a completely custom report that's outside of your CRM and your other things. So really the key thing that you want to look for is software that's open or at least is open enough to allow you to do the communications that you want it to do. And sometimes, you don't need too much, and You know, a platform will do that and you're good, and other times you need to customize for it. So just think about that. And I would just, if you're going to go into picking a CRM, make sure you interview all important stakeholders at the business so you understand what would make their life easier.
Good point. Chris?
Yeah, I had the privilege of listening to a call with about 25 chief revenue officers and VP of sales a couple months ago. And one of the issues that came up was one of the leaders had come into a company. They already had their CRM that they've been using, but it could not integrate with anything. There are a lot of CRM platforms out there, and when you're going through them, they have a lot of great bells and whistles. But if they cannot integrate, if they don't have that API to connect with other applications, they were stuck. And so they had already invested a bunch of money. That money is essentially flush because now they have to start over and move everything over to a new platform that can integrate. So it's really when you're making that selection, even if you don't have anything to integrate with now, as your business is growing 3 years from now, more than likely you're going to need to be able to integrate with something else. Usually it's an accounting platform, but it could be other operational type tools as well. So make sure that you, that's one of the areas that you put focus on. It's usually, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it ignored, and it ends up as a major pain point later on.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, I can tell you that, you know, one of my projects for today is I just found out that Salesforce integrates with Zoom. So when somebody RSVPs for a meeting, it will actually update our Salesforce and say, okay, they made it to a meeting, and we're still manually, remember that Excel spreadsheet,
Mm-hmm.
you know, marking who shows up to, you know, who RSVPs for a meeting. It's silly. I don't know why you don't think about that, but there's so many integrations that you know you can do. But I think I'm going to go back to the overwhelming aspect. There's so much that can be done. Make sure your plan's in place and take little steps towards improvement every day. And that's going to be my little step here in the next couple of days. So back to the questions. Jim, did you have anything to add on that?
I was just going to throw in that we developed an API for our system a long time ago. We haven't had much use by law firms. We actually use it ourselves for what we do with RSVPs and subscription updates, and very highly secure way of having all of that flow through. But I agree, it's very important to have that available.
Absolutely. I'm reading through some of the questions. Ethan, that's just a mapping of your fields. You know, that's just spending the time to set it up. You know, to break it down and make sure it's working correctly. Monica said something about Active Campaign. Is anybody using Active Campaign? Okay.
I responded to her. We're looking at it as I actually recommended today to a Salesforce user. It's basically, it's a nice, Monica said she responded to me. She said she uses it for CRM as well, but we use it, we're recommended as an add-on to CRM. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a light marketing where it's not expensive. It's inexpensive versus other marketing solutions that are pretty high end.
Yeah.
So
well, I think
we recommend it. Haven't used it, but it definitely looks like it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it so far. I mean, from a sales standpoint, it's extremely easy to use, very organic in the way that it organizes your sales process. But I wanted to share too, you know, we automate everything through our CRM, and maybe I'm not using the term correctly, but we use Active Campaign for everything. And so when a new lead comes in, it creates a profile for them in Active Campaign. It gives them the option to have a meeting with me, and that's all integrated through Zoom. I literally just in the morning get up, turn my computer on, and I meet with people. That's it. So it's very streamlined. It's very automated. And I always tell people, I try and raise my robots right, but you know, sometimes things happen because it's not perfect, right?
Yeah.
But it is very, very, it's just very well done from a sales standpoint. I save so much time with these kinds of integrations.
is that you can do anything you want. You can track anything you want. It's just back to that original plan, right? If that's what we need to track, let's set up a plan and find out what needs to happen and what you want the output to be, rather than, so find out what you want and then get that output. I mean, Tom, did you want to comment on, customizing and a little bit, David, anybody?
I could jump in and say, yeah, I don't know too much about the tax side you're doing, but customizing integration, one thing I wanted to say, Microsoft does have their own app stores. I agree with the APIs and stuff like that, but they have, I think, 3,000 apps out there, including things like Zoom and integration, stuff like that. So if you have a certain area that you want to go into there, and keep in mind, if you have on-premise, like Jim mentioned, he uses SQL Server and stuff like that, versus in the cloud, like from Microsoft and Salesforce, the integration points may be different, meaning different methods. For example, Microsoft does not let you access the SQL Server database. So if you integrate, you have to use different tools. So keep that in mind if you're technically minded. As far as customization goes, that's pretty much, I consider any off-the-shelf CRM needs to be customized at some level, if nothing else. For example, out of the box, Microsoft comes with, you have to choose your every transaction. If you do a quote out of the box, it says you have to choose your currency, US dollar. Well, most of my customers use US dollar, so we have a little add-on customization that we give free that eliminates the US dollar piece and just bypasses all that, so you just know it's one unit and at $25, that's it. So at least some little level of customization or configuration at least should apply to whatever you're doing. Because out of the box, most systems I think are back up. Most general systems, including Salesforce and Microsoft, the two big ones, are kind of ugly and not as useful, user-friendly out of the box as they could be. That's kind of my thought there.
Yeah. Well, we've reached the top of the hour. I want to thank Chris, Tom, Jim, Jessica, and David for providing us a lot of anxiety. No, really, it's been fantastic, and thank you. And was this good for everybody? Did everybody enjoy this event? Excellent. At least David did. I'm real happy about that.
Forrest, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate being on the panel. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Tom. And look forward to seeing everybody on Friday. We'll have our community forum again. I know Friday's a long ways away. But hopefully at 8 o'clock Pacific time, we will have another group of 60 or 70 people. But that's really a focus around, let's do some business together. And you'll get a chance to meet other people in breakout rooms. So think of it as a 1 hour time spent to meet 12 to 14 people that you have not met yet or may have met once or twice. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and look forward to seeing you at the next Highrise meetings. Thank you, everybody, for being here.